So it's been a little over a year since I came to the Morozko Forge factory in Phoenix, Arizona. Obviously, I was beyond impressed, life-changing experience for me. And now I'm back with the master, Tom Segar. How's it going?
Thanks for having me on the podcast, Mike. It's going great.
Yeah, so I guess first and foremost, I remember I told you, I said, Tom, your ice baths are too damn expensive. And you kind of came back and said, well, they're for people that take this stuff really really seriously. And I saw recently you guys put out a unit for under $10,000.
Correct. We took a lot of the carpentry labor out of the unit. So it still has the same refrigeration, the same ozone. It's still warranted for Epsom salt. It's still grounded, but we took a lot of the carpentry and wood expenses out. We're calling it the new Morozko Forge. So you get the same tub and the same cooling, but you get a different aesthetic. It is a Linex coated foam board rather than the wood that would match your sauna. And some people, they really like that white look. For them, it's more modern, and it makes sense.
Yeah. And so so that's really it. It's just the difference of the outer layer there.
Correct. It's a little bit shorter than the models that we offer for Morozko Ice Bath. So this new Morozko Forge, it comes in a 60-inch tub, which is 5 feet. It'll fit anybody up to about 6'1". And some people think the 72-inch or the 66-inch is too long because they like to brace their feet. So 60 inches is a good length for most people. But if you need more, if you're one of those 6'4" guys, then maybe the new Morozko Forge is a little bit of too much of a squeeze.
And it's still like it could still fully go outside.
Oh yeah, the lid options are limited, just like the colors are limited, but you get the same warranty. You can put it outside and you don't need to worry about whether it gets rained on or gets too much sun. It's very durable.
Take control of your own health. I am so cold. It literally feels like electricity is running through my body. I feel superhuman. So that's one thing about your company I feel like that really is different from other ones is that you guys are Epsom salt warranted.
Correct.
So how does that work exactly? Like how come other companies can't handle the salts? And what are the benefits of the salts?
Okay, we'll start with the benefits. Cold thermogenesis, it revs up the mitochondria. Magnesium is essential to mitochondrial function. So magnesium participates in something like hundreds of metabolic reactions. And in particular, exposure to the cold will cause your body to release magnesium from the bones where it is stored into your bloodstream so that it can reach your mitochondria. Cold thermogenesis requires magnesium. So where are you going to get this magnesium? You can get it in a supplement, and that's fine. You can get it from your bones because the majority of magnesium stored in your body is in your bones, or you can get it from Epsom salt in your ice bath. Epsom salt is chemically magnesium sulfate. When you put that in your ice bath, I know you're not in there for very long, maybe 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes at near freezing temperatures. But when I get out and I dry off, I leave the salt on my skin. It makes my skin feel soft. I like that feeling. And all day, the magnesium available on my skin will be absorbed by my body. It's called transdermal absorption. It goes through the pores and hair follicles on the skin directly into my bloodstream, bypassing my digestive system. Now I'm no longer worried about whether the magnesium is going to cause diarrhea or whether it's going to be properly absorbed because it's going straight into my bloodstream. This replenishes the magnesium that would otherwise be taken from my bones. So when you see people who do a lot of cold exposure, they could be outdoor workers, maybe they have winter jobs, and they are experiencing chronic cold exposure, and they're not getting enough magnesium, sure enough, the epidemiological studies show that the bones will get weaker. When you supplement with magnesium, so the mitochondria have the magnesium they need for cold thermogenesis, you no longer take it from the bones. So the Epsom salt is a really important add to a cold plunge, to an ice bath that is as cold as Morozko. The thing about the Epsom salt is if you got to drain your unit and then refill it every week because you don't have a good, filtration disinfection system, then you're always buying Epsom salt. You're always adding more and it increases your expenses. I don't have to do that. I never change my water. The ozonation and the filtration keeps my water clean. I only top my water off. And so when I top it off, I have to add a little bit more Epsom. Every time I use bottled water, every time I take a big, water cooler flask and I put it into my Morozko to top off my water, I add another pound of Epsom salt.
So does the Epsom salt also have antibacterial properties? Like, does it keep it clean as well, the tub?
Not so much. It would be nice to think so, but you have to add a lot of salt before you really start to discourage that bacterial growth. One of the things that happens when you add magnesium is also an algae fertilizer. So when you first add your Epsom salt, if your water has any algae spores in it at all, it will cause those algae spores to bloom. And you might get green or like a yellow-brown looking water. And then I'll get an email or a direct message on Instagram or something, and it'll say, Professor Seagar, what happened to my water? And I'll say, did you add Epsom salt? And they're like, yeah, 4 pounds, just like you said. You run the ozone filtration for 24 hours. It will kill all of that algae. The algae was in the water the entire time, but as a spore rather than an active organism. When it gets the magnesium and is like yummy, yummy, it blooms, multiplies, and you got to use the ozone and filtration to kill it. You are much better off with the algae blooming and then becoming sanitized than draining out the tub and starting over, because whatever source of water you were using had algae spores in it. Most municipal water systems have those algae spores. They are not removed by your municipal water treatment system. Even if they pour chlorine in there, the algae spores are so resilient, so resistant to chlorine attack that they're going to stay in your water. Anybody with a pool in Phoenix, Arizona has seen this happen eventually. They get a big algae bloom. They need to chlorine shock their pool to kill the algae. If they were to drain it and start over, they would still have the algae spores in the water. So sometimes you might think, hey, I add a little salt and I get a microbial benefit. But we're not adding that much salt. 4 pounds per Morozko is not so much like a float tank would have. And don't use dead sea salts. Don't use sea salts. Don't use any chloride salt. We want to keep the chloride out of the tank. And it's for 2 reasons. One, chloride is much more corrosive than sulfate is. Chloride is a halogen. Chloride has a high electronegativity. And so when there's a Cl minus, this would be a chloride ion in the water, it's deficient. It has a -1 charge that is distributed around a single atom, and it's highly corrosive. But sulfate has a sulfur in the middle and 4 oxygens around the outside. It will also have a charge, but that charge is distributed through a larger molecule. Most of the sulfate that is in your forge after you add magnesium will be in the form of hydrogen sulfate rather than H2SO4, which is sulfuric acid. It will be in a form called bisulfate, still -1 charge, but distributed around a much larger atom, much less corrosive. So how come we get to add sulfate and nobody else does?
That was my next question.
Yep. You know that we use a stainless steel tub, and the stainless steel is going to be resistant to sulfate corrosion. Well, that's great. Everybody else is using fiberglass, or they're using a flexible plastic like in one of those pop-up tubs, which is terrible for you, or they're using acrylic. And those are also corrosion resistant materials. But the way all of our competitors work, every one of our competitors that uses a chiller will draw water out of the tub and then extract heat from the water with a heat exchanger. That heat exchanger is made of metal. In a hot tub, it'll be made of titanium. If the hot tub is rated for minerals and salts, it's got to be a metal that is highly resistant to corrosion. But in chillers, they're not made of titanium. They're either made of aluminum, which has a very high coefficient of heat transfer, or copper, which also has a high coefficient of heat transfer and is a little more expensive than aluminum, or steel, which isn't as good but is cheaper. The problem with those metals is that they're all subject to corrosion. So if you add salt to your chiller-driven cold plunge, you risk corroding the heat exchanger unit inside your chiller. Now, these chillers are the most common point of failure in every competitor's product. We don't use a chiller. The only metal in contact with our water is the stainless steel tub. That stainless steel tub grounds the water, which is terrific, but all of the cold is outside the tub. It is transferred via copper coils that never come in contact with the water. So we're different. Every competitor that puts the water in contact with that heat exchanger inside the chiller runs the risk of causing the heat exchanger unit to corrode and crack. The chillers are already so unreliable that all of our competitors will say, no, don't add salt. We don't warranty for that, because they're having trouble enough keeping their chillers working.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite quotes from you from all time was you said that most cold plunges are just cold plunging in a fish tank. Because they use aquarium chillers and everything. And so I just want to go back to, a little bit about like the mechanisms of like how your stuff works. So you're still using a pump. So you are circulating the water out of the tub, but just unlike most companies, they're using the pump to then put it through either like a filter, then to the chiller. Tell me about what you're doing.
We have a separate refrigeration system. Instead of bringing the water to the cold, we bring the cold to the water. So there's a compressor and there's a heat exchanger like all refrigeration systems have. But our cold runs under or on the sides of the tub, depending upon the model. And it extracts the heat through the side walls of the tub or through the bottom of the tub. It doesn't bring the water out of the tub and then exchange it. What we do when we pump the water out is we run it through a filter, and then we run it through the ozone disinfection, and we return it clean to the tub. When you have an all-in-one chiller, which is the cheapest way to build it, you got to pull the water out, filter it, whatever disinfection, if it has one, not all of them have disinfection systems, and then you got to run it through that chiller heat exchanger. The problem is if the inlet strainer gets clogged, or the filter gets clogged. And, what does the homeowner know? Maybe it's running for a few days and the flow got low. It didn't seem clogged, but if the flow gets too low, the heat exchanger will freeze up and break. When you do it all in one single point of failure in the system will cause the failure of the entire system. This isn't usually a big deal if you're running it like 50 degrees, but all of our competitors are advertising lower and lower temperatures. Hey, our chiller goes down to 37. Our chiller goes down to 36. And the only way that
some of them are doing 32 now, which I don't understand how they do it. They're claiming these all-in-one units can make ice.
I've seen that ad, and I've seen the ice
maybe in a laboratory
in their tank, and I'm like, that is a thermodynamic mystery. And it would be fun to get my hands on one of these and say, all right, let's see how you do it. But the problem when you have an all-in-one chiller and you keep trying to drive it to colder and colder temperatures is that the risk of freezing the water inside that chiller heat exchanger keeps going up and up and up. Once you form ice in that heat exchanger, you know that ice expands compared to liquid water. It will bust out the heat exchanger, it will bust out the container, the chiller will leak. It's either going to leak refrigerant or it's going to leak water. It will never work again. And this is why you can talk to some of our competitors' customers and they'll say, I'm on my third chiller. I'm on my fourth chiller. I've got a customer in Tennessee who uses both a competing product and ours. He's on his 16th chiller. because when you run them that hard, when you run them under the conditions that our competitors advertise them for, you will break them. Morozko is built, if not to be bulletproof, at least like normal use proof. We warranty our products for the conditions that we're advertising. When we say you can live in Phoenix, Arizona, keep your Morozko outside, and it will make ice at 115 degrees Fahrenheit, that's exactly what we mean. And when we say we will warranty that for 3 years, that means that anything, any manufacturing defect, anything that is out of spec, we will fix it. That's a lot different than what our competitors are advertising. So it's no wonder that they're cheaper than we are. Morozko is a value play, not a price play. For those people who aren't really sure they want to do cold plunge, but they're kind of curious, they can go to Costco. They can go to Amazon. They can go to, I don't know, any number of other places, any competing website. They can drop a couple of grand. They can even go to Alibaba and get a competing unit for a few $100s. Try it out. And for the 2 or 3 months that it works, they can decide whether cold plunge is really for them. Then the unit breaks, but that's okay. It was like a disposable unit in the first place. When you make a commitment to a Morozko, it's expensive. But that's because you are committing to a lifelong practice rather than something that you're kind of curious about and you want to see if you're going to try it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I mean, I know that, like, I personally talk a lot of shit about inflatables and everything, and all-in-ones, quite frankly, but like you said, there is a place for it. I think the market is completely like misaligned, where it's like, yeah, it seems like most companies are doing inflatables and all-in-ones, so it seems like it's like 80% is like all-in-ones and inflatables, where it should be like 10%, and they should be a lot cheaper. They should be introductory levels, but instead they're at these price points of like $4,000, $5,000. Like you said, Alibaba.com, you see, oh, these units cost $900, each, and it's like, what are you getting?
Same machines. The business model that has been working for a lot of our competitors is to identify a Chinese manufacturer on Alibaba, call them up in Shenzhen or wherever they are in China, and say, okay, I want to buy 50. What's your best price? They get a little bit of a discount off of the advertised Alibaba price, although on Alibaba, all the volume discounts are advertised as well. They import it to the United States with their logo on it, and then they buy a bunch of ads on Google, on Facebook that say, it's the revolutionary new innovative technology of ultimate cold plunge therapy. They pick a catchy brand name like Polar Pod Icer Jize Monkey, and they buy a domain name, and then they mark up the Alibaba price by 5 or 6 times, and then they offer you $1,000 off Father's Day sale or whatever it is to make you think that you're getting a good deal. This model has been repeated like 100 times. There are 2 problems. One is the cheap plastic that those Chinese manufacturers use. It's not good for you. Edge Theory is an interesting example. Edge Theory zoomed past Morozko. They entered the business after we did, but they grew so much faster with this model. They had an inflatable tub because it was less expensive and more people, volume, could buy it. They were getting it straight out of China and dropping it on your house. But the problem is that those soft plastics that are used in the inflatable or the pop-up devices, when you open them up, you know how they have a little bit of that new car smell. Those are the plasticizers and the flame retardants that are in the plastic. These materials were never built to last. And those softeners that go in are toxic, whether it's bisphenol A or brominated flame retardants. You fill it up with water, you get into this toxic soup, and you tell yourself, I'm doing this for my health, which is the wrong way to think about it. So the first problem is the cheap plastic, not so much with the acrylic or fiberglass tubs, but the cheap flexible plastic tubs. They aren't good for you. The The second problem is people thought they were buying a product that would last for a long time. They thought that the cold plunge business was like every other mature technology. They expected it to last as long as their refrigerator or their freezer or their dorm fridge, but they were never built for that. They weren't durable materials and they weren't durable chiller units, and so Edge Theory went out of business. Odin went out of business. Ice Barrel just got sold and their investors lost all of their money because none of these companies that grew so fast really understood the full costs of servicing the customer. That's a difficult problem when your model is, I'm going to buy something out of China, mark it up a bunch, sell it to customers as with these inflated marketing claims, who are then going to come back to me 6 months later and expect me to live up to either warranties or a brand reputation that I never earned.
Yeah. So do you think that like all these companies are like ultimately going to fail? And then my next question is like as a consumer, how do you know the difference between a company that's just 2 or 3 people drop shipping from China versus a company like yours where I've been to your warehouse, you have like 20 people working at one time. Like how do people know?
42 employees now. It's a lot to manage. But your question is apt. How do you tell the difference? We did a study. We just updated it, as a matter of fact. We did a study of the terms and warranties that different competitors were offering. I'll give you an example. At the time we did this study, Renew, which is supposed to be a premium brand, they were showing pictures on their website of Renew installed outside. But if you read the fine print in the warranty, it says you install Renew outside and you void your warranty. They're advertising conditions that they don't warranty for. That is a huge red flag. Now, I don't know if they've fixed it, but one way to tell whether you're dealing with a reputable company that is invested in a brand and cares about its reputation or not is to read those warranty exclusions. In my opinion, anyone that is trying to sell you an extended warranty, hey, you can pay another $100 and you can extend your warranty, is ripping you off. They do not believe in their product, and so they don't warranty it. They have no incentive to make improvements. They have no mechanism to make improvements. Because if you call Shenzhen and say, hey, we got a leaky pump problem, Shenzhen will say, not our problem, that's your problem. Even if you convince them to fix the problem in China, it will take 6 months for that to go through the supply chain so that the next iteration of your product won't have that leaky pump problem. They don't own their technology, and so they can't fix it. Instead, they put a bunch of exclusions in the terms of service, in the warranties, to weasel out of the customer expectation. So you'll call them up and you'll say, hey, I have a leak. And they'll say, well, we'll send you a new hose. We'll send you a new clamp. We'll send you a new plumb. But you have to find your own plumber to install it at your own expense. What the heck kind of a warranty is that? Or they'll say, we don't warranty against water treatment misuse, customer lack of maintenance problems, whatever that means. And so you call them up and you say, hey, I got a chiller issue. And they'll say, well, did you change your filter every day? You say, what are you talking about? I never got that instruction. Well, it was right in the terms, in the fine print of the sale. Why haven't you done this? Oops, you voided your warranty. The business model in the cold plunge industry right now is to trick people into buying a product that does not live up to the advertising and marketing claims that the manufacturer has made. And this report details all the discrepancies between the advertised and the actual terms or the actual warranty that I don't even know if you can count on. That's a good way to tell.
It really is just so evil and something so unexpected and disappointed in me. And as I've grown, like I just sadly find myself more pessimistic about humanity and everything. And I got into this like, oh, I'm going to review some ice baths, talk about ice bathing. I like biohacking. I kind of wanted to just niche into this. And then you just realize like, it's just so insidious and gross. And there's just so many fraudsters out there. And it's just depressing. One thing you said too, just a little quote. You said, they don't own their own technology. And just to answer my own question, how can you identify, who's a fraudster and who's a real company? I mean, does it look like everything else? If
Here's
yes,
a good way.
then
If you go on their website and they are advertising the ultimate innovative revolution of the technology of the breakthrough, you know they are a fraud. Refrigeration is 120 years old. There is no ultimate innovation breakthrough. There is only the adaptation of an old, mature technology to a new application, which is the cold plunge or the ice tub. If you go on their website and after 5 seconds you get a pop-up, saying, enter to get our free ultimate cold plunge guide to cold plunging guidance, then you are dealing with a fraudster. You probably have some 23-year-old guy that used to be the assistant night manager at a Domino's Pizza putting up a domain name of like Coldergize and saying now he's got the ultimate breakthrough technology of the guide to cold plunge. And I get it. You want to believe. You want to think that you've got a deal. You want to believe that they're not scraping your email address and adding you to the list and that they're going to spam you with remarketing. You want to believe that the article you saw in Men's Health that said the top 10 cold plunges of 2025 isn't native advertising that required every single company that's mentioned in the article to pay Men's Fitness Health, whatever the domain name is, 10 grand for the privilege of being mentioned. You want to believe this stuff is real. What you don't want to do is pick up a copy of my book. You don't want to wade through 550 scientific citations about what cold plunge therapy will do and what it won't do. You don't want to go to Amazon and buy Uncommon Testosterone with its case studies and its 250 scientific citations. You want to believe that these people are trustworthy and that they're going to save you money and that what they say is true. What sucks, Mike, is it's all a lie. If you aren't willing to do a little bit of homework, if you aren't willing to say, you know what, maybe 4,500 is not a good deal, then you're going to pay for it later, either through more money or more work or more time. Somebody went on Reddit and they said, why is Morozko so expensive? And they started getting these sort of uninformed replies. Oh, Morozko pays Joe Rogan so much money. That's why they're so expensive. We've never paid Joe Rogan a dime. We've never paid Cam Haines a dime. We've never paid Chris Gethin a dime. We do have some paid affiliates. Ben Greenfield is one. Mike Mutzel is one. But if Ben Bickman goes and says, hey, I'm loving my ice bath and I'm loving my Morozko, it's not because we paid him anything. The money is not in the marketing. It's in the $2.5 million I've spent on research and development and craftsmanship and perfecting the craft. So I go on Reddit and I do this really long post and I say, hey, I'm the CEO of Morozko. I'm going to tell you where the money is going. You can probably build 70% of a Morozko in your backyard for 1/3 the cost. Do it. I'm not going to send you instructions, but that's the way I started, in a backyard, building something for myself. We're not actually selling you copper and steel and wood. We're selling you the knowledge that we've accumulated over the last 6 years of what to do with all that copper and steel and wood. We're selling you the convenience. We're selling you the service. We're selling you the warranty. Those things can't be, delegated to software programs. Those things can't be outsourced to China. They can't be made cheap because they need real people. When you call Morozko, you get a real person who calls you back and says, my name is Josh, or my name is Scott, or my name is Thaddeus. How can I help you? You do not get an Indian AI-driven chatbot on the phone and multiple layers of automated customer service before you get to talk to a real person. That's why it's so damn expensive. Some snarky troll wrote back and he said, yeah, I get it, but how come a Morozko costs 4 times as much as my refrigerator? And I wrote back and I said, because you got a cheap ass refrigerator. I mean, there's a difference between a premium brand and like the usual, Sears, Kenmore, whatever the heck made in China it is. And I guess I can't apologize for building in the United States. Everything that we do is in West Phoenix, for supporting our customers with warranty service, for trying to be an honest brand that tells people the truth instead of trying to trick people into buying something. The difficulty is it costs money to do business the way that I'm trying to do it.
Yeah, and one thing also that I just wanted to touch on the same note is that I do think there is somewhat of like a advertising paradox where you have these kids who used to work at Domino's starting up these companies, right? And because they don't have any overhead, because it's just them and maybe one or two other people, they can take all that extra money that a company like yours is putting into like R&D and paying a staff of 42 people. They can take all that money that you're using for good and just pump it into advertising.
Correct.
So every time you open up your phone, you just see their ads, and so it's a weird kind of thing where, it's a little sinister. But
one of the difficulties with that is it destroys the credibility of everyone in the industry. It used to be that if somebody might like Michael Lowe on Instagram, he owns Simply03, and he would do a video and there'd be like ice everywhere and snow in his backyard in Michigan, and he would get in 100,000 views. Ice Plunge, was very popular and trendy. The algos were promoting it on all social media. Those days are over. Now the algos are promoting people who bash ice baths. So you got Stacy Sims going on Huberman, or you got Stacy Sims going on Diary of a CEO, or on the Mel Robbins podcast. That was the ultimate. Mel Robbins is a customer. She has a Morozko, she ice baths. But when Stacy Sims went on her podcast and she's like, I don't really like the colder temperatures for women. It came out when they clipped it and put headlines. It was like, Stacy Sims says ice baths are bad for women. It's not true. Huberman had to do like a 5-minute Instagram reel response saying, that's the wrong interpretation. That's not what Stacy Sims said, and those aren't the facts. I did my own sort of 7-minute, like, hey, let's remind you of all the benefits of ice baths for women. But the comments fell into two categories. There were some women who replied and said, how can it be bad for me? Ice baths have saved my life. I was depressed and now I'm not. I was fat and now I'm healthy. I had Hashimoto's and now I've reversed it. I had type 2 diabetes and now I'm normal. Whatever it was, they've said ice baths have been the best thing for me. And the other comments were saying, I knew it. That's why I've never done an ice bath and I never will. The algos were taking the ice bath bashing and popularizing it, putting it out where people would mash that like button and say, yes, that's what I want to hear right now. It's made it very difficult to market the truth in an industry that has so far been driven by one, social media algorithm after another. And as that pendulum swings, we have to find different ways of meeting the audience, like sort of where their expectations are.
Yeah, perfectly said. Just to go back a little bit, I have heard you say that your ice bath does not need to be on Wi-Fi. I believe this new ice bath of yours is Wi-Fi enabled.
Yep.
So what made you make the switch?
Yep. So our ice baths now have a controller that you can attach to your phone and control from your app. It was Ben Greenfield who taught me that he didn't want Wi-Fi. Even though Morozko's grounded, and that means when you're in the Morozko, you are shielded from all the non-native EMFs. They will not penetrate the tub. They will not penetrate the water. But Greenfield, he wants to minimize all those Wi-Fi connections. He wants to control them. He didn't mind having a manual controller. But Ben Greenfield is extreme. A lot of people were asking us for a smartphone-enabled app that allows them to control their cold plunge. There is a misconception behind this. When you own a sauna and you're coming home from work or you're coming home from the gym and you're like, oh my God, I really want a sauna. You want to be able to control it from your phone. You're in your car, you're in the parking lot of the gym, and you're like, I'm going to turn that thing on. I want it to be 180 degrees when I get home, and I know it's going to take half an hour. An ice bath doesn't work that way. An ice bath stays cold all the time. You don't need remote control of your ice bath. There's going to be ice in there waiting for you whenever you're ready, and you're not going to adjust the settings like you do on a sauna. But people, they think, well, my sauna runs this way, and the sauna business is about 6-7 times bigger than the cold plunge business right now. It's like, well, I want that for my cold plunge. Even if you did have it, and we offer it, and you're at the gym, and you're saying, oh, I want to get some cold, when I get home. I'm going to take the temperature down on my cold plunge. Good luck. It is so much thermodynamically more difficult to chill water down than it is to heat up an empty room. It takes time. Just like you don't leave your refrigerator door open when you go to work. Your refrigerator and your freezer stay cold all the time. And you don't adjust the temperature of your refrigerator every day. You don't adjust the temperature of your ice bath either. So now we offer the Wi-Fi. You don't have to use it. The interface is a little bit more intuitive, and so that helps some people. But yeah, I stand by what I said. You don't need a Wi-Fi controller app to run your ice bath.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but cold water is also better at keeping bacteria at bay, right?
Correct. But it's not perfect. Bacteria, algae, even viruses will find an environment, even in the cold, in which they can grow. You don't want bacteria or algae in your cold plunge. You want a powerful disinfection system. And so almost everybody will sell you chlorine. You can sign up for their chemicals subscription, and every month they'll send you bottles of chlorine and stabilizer and algicides and things that you can add to your ice bath as if it were a swimming pool. This is a really bad idea. I don't want chlorine anywhere near me or my customers because I don't believe in poisoning my customers. Chlorine is not in any natural body of water. It doesn't exist anywhere in nature, and there's no point in getting into a chlorinated cold plunge for your health. So we use ozone. Ozone occurs naturally. It occurs in the stratosphere where it protects us from the very short ultraviolet wavelengths of light that the Earth is not supposed to be getting. But that's not the ozone I'm talking about. I'm talking about that ozone that you can smell. Like if you have, an electric train like I had when I was a kid, and the motor's throwing off sparks, you can smell that ozone. And sometimes you can smell it in a Morozko. It smells like right after a lightning storm, because the lightning is electrifying the oxygen in the atmosphere and creating ozone. It exists in nature, and that's why we use it in the Morozko, because it is more powerful as a disinfectant, as a viral deactivator than the chlorine is, and it's much healthier for you. Don't breathe it, but on your skin, it's good. And in the water, it's good. It keeps the bacteria out. The main thing about the freezing temperature is that ozone is more effective at cold temperatures than it is at warm temperatures. You can buy ozone for your swimming pool, but because your swimming pool is warm, the ozone degrades too quickly to really be effective. At cold temperatures, the effectiveness of the ozone increases. Chlorine is the opposite. Chlorine works better at warm temperatures, like in your pool or in your hot tub, and less effectively at cold temperatures. So this is another reason why ozone is perfect for ice baths. The problem is, it's tricky. The problem is nobody has a graduate degree in environmental engineering and then gets into the ice bath business except me. Nobody wanted to test 6 different ozone generators in their kitchen all summer long to find out which one actually worked except me. So if you don't know which ozone gen to use, and you don't know how to plumb it up right, and you don't know how to monitor the way that it's interacting with the water quality, it won't work.
Okay, I'm not going to take your trade secret and ask you what ozone you use, but I will ask, are you guys pumping it in through with a Venturi?
Yeah, the Venturi is a suction device, not a pump. You can buy an ozone gem with a pump and an air stone. Desert Plunge has this option, for example. And then you
Here.
put the air stone into the water and it will force air, ozonated air, through the air stone and bubble it in through the water. And this is not a bad option. David Moss will tell you, don't ever get into an ice bath when the ozone is on. But David Moss is a used car salesman, not a environmental engineer. He just doesn't know. And so he's saying, make sure you turn that. No, it's all nonsense. Get into the ozonated ice bath. It's good for your skin. But Morozko doesn't use an air pump. It's just something else to break. Instead, we have an ozone generator. Our ozone gen is made in China. We have tested the crap out of it. They make it for us. They put a Morozko sticker on there. But if you're really curious, it's made by the Ambor, or at least sold to us by the Ambor company in China. And then we hook it up to a Venturi. There are hundreds of different Venturis. The Venturi has to be sized correctly to run with your pump so that you get the right dose of ozone. Then we go into what's called a flash reactor. The ozone must be mixed up with the water. If it's not mixed up, then the water will never be disinfected. Then it goes into a contact chamber at a very high ozone concentration rate. And in that contact chamber, it's held for a second while the ozone does its work, and it will remove color. It will destroy organics. It will kill bacteria. It will deactivate viruses. It will kill algae. Not necessarily all at once. If you have a lot of color or a lot of organic material, a lot of dead skin cells, for example, it will take time for the ozone to work it through. But on the viruses, instantaneous deactivation so you can maintain sanitary conditions. And then it will return the ozonated water back to the tub where it'll stay clean.
And how long are you running your ozone?
Typically, home environment, 2 to 4 hours a night. Everything is on a timer, so it'll come on at midnight, between midnight and 4 in the morning, depending upon your time zone, and it'll sanitize your water. Now, we also have a button that you can press. You want more ozone? Press the button, it'll turn it on, and then the timer will take over and turn it back off. Now, I like having the button because I run my ozone all the time, 24/7. I love having the ozone, but the way it leaves the factory is just a few hours at night. In a commercial setting, you got to have the ozone on all the time because there's so many different people coming in. Usually a homeowner situation, it's 1, maybe 4 people in a family that are using the same ice bath. And they're in such intimate contact with one another anyway. But in a commercial situation, ozone on all the time to keep that water disinfected.
Yeah, I mean, you hear people say that when you breathe in ozone, it's not good for your lungs. It's an irritant.
Those people are correct. The ozone belongs in the water, not in the air. Fortunately, your nose is super sensitive at ozone detection. As soon as you smell it, like your nose is meant to help keep you alive. As soon as you smell it, you're like, okay, I know the ozone is working. It means the ozone has done its job. There's nothing left in the water for the ozone to attack. And so it's coming out. If you smell it, you can turn your ozone off and you have confidence that you've been sanitized.
Okay.
Now, you smell ozone at about almost 1/10 the level of concentration that OSHA and the EPA set as the maximum allowable threshold. So the maximum allowable threshold is a huge stink of ozone, not like a trace smell. For those people who are concerned, we have an ozone air meter. You can put it right next to your Morozko, and you can see, hey, am I doing too much ozone? Do I have too much ozone in the air? And you can dial back the amount of ozone that you're using by changing your filter timer settings. That way you don't have to worry about breathing it.
Got it. And then also with sanitation, I've noticed that like if you were just to Google like what pH level you want to keep a pool at, like Google's going to tell you somewhere between 7.2 and 7.8. Now
Correct.
you guys at Morozko are recommending, I believe, 6.5 to 7.
Correct.
Why is
So
that?
Google is going to tell you, if you say, what ice bath pH should I use? Google's going to tell you the same thing that all the swimming pools are recommended for. But remember that chlorine and bromine chemistry, chlorine and bromine are halogens, and their chemistry is different than ozone chemistry. Ozone is O3, so it's based entirely upon oxygen, not upon these halogens. The chemistry of ozone is different. You cannot trust Google or ChatGPT or any of the other search engines because they're giving you chlorine information. They don't go to morozkoforge.com and read our article and our instructions on ozone and say, oh, everything that we've scanned, all the robot, searching spider web, whatever the heck that we've done on chlorine pools must be wrong and Morozko must be right. When you go to a search engine, the search engine sort of averages all the results. It's not going to tell you the new, novel thing where everybody else is wrong. You have to come to me to get that. I'm going to tell you that 7.2 to 7.8 is too high a pH for an ozone-driven system. When you take the pH down to slightly acidic, like 6.5, the ozone works much better. But the recommendations for chlorine are accurate. You don't have a chlorine system in your Morozko. You have an ozone system. So don't take chlorine recommendations and then apply them to your Morozko ozone tub. Take my recommendations.
Got it. So I've been messing around with I use a mod tub. I've been messing around with Sorona Spa Sanitizer, which is PHMB or biguanide. Are you familiar with that?
I don't know. Is that a trade name? Because it doesn't sound like a chemical name.
PHMB or
PHMB. I mean,
biguanide? All right, if you don't
never
know,
heard.
it's all good. It
Yeah.
was kind of a bonus because I'm messing around with it. It's supposed to be like a chlorine alternative. I just wanted to hear what you think about it, but all
Do you
good.
know what chemical that is?
Biguanide?
PHMB, also known as polyhexanide, is a broad-spectrum antimicrobial agent primarily used as an antiseptic and disinfectant. So, how do you feel about adding to your water a polyhexanide?
I don't know the first thing about
Yeah, right?
it.
Yeah. Here's what you know about it. It will kill microbes. What will it do to you, Mike?
Probably kill some microbes on my skin.
Well, yeah, a lot of things will do that, but I'm not worried so much about that. I'm worried about what PHMB will do to you. PHMB is a severe eye irritant and a moderate dermal irritant and sensitizer. Acute oral inhalation and dermal toxicity are acute toxicity category 3, which requires signal word caution to appear on the product label. Does the product label say, hey, this is a poison?
I don't think so.
Well, it's a poison. That's
Okay.
how it works. Chlorine is also a poison. Polyhexamides, or whatever they are, polyhexamethylene biguanide, can be toxic, with effects varying based upon concentration, exposure route, and individual susceptibility. All I can say is go for it. Call up ModTub and say, how much testing have you done on your PHMB toxicity alternative? If you were to put, I don't know, a guppy into your cold plunge, never mind that, a goldfish because it's cold and guppies are a tropical fish, um, you know, would you trust it? I don't know anything about PHMB. All I know is that stuff came from a lab instead of from nature. Have you ever tried putting methylene blue in your mod tub?
No.
It's an interesting idea. Like methylene blue is also an artificial agent, right? It's used to disinfect aquariums. It's used as a mitochondrial stimulant. People don't put it in their cold plunge despite the fact that it has health benefits because they don't want to be blue when they come out. It is an industrial dye. And methylene blue can have beneficial health effects, but You just don't want to be dyeing your skin when you're cold plunging. So this search for chlorine and bromine alternatives that will keep your cold plunge from getting stinky, it makes sense. The problem is that what kills the bacteria also kills you, with some rare exceptions.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It kind of always goes back to just like, well, would you rather swim in water with fungus and stuff and get some crazy, brain-eating amoeba, or swim with some chlorine, So you gotta, life is about, trade-offs and everything. And
That's a false trade-off. I would rather swim in clean water that has been treated by ozone than get some spongiform brain-eating fungus or chlorine. So that's why I built Morozko with ozone.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I'm just asking for those who don't have the budget of a car to buy a Morozko Forge. So I guess for someone like me, you'd recommend I just go back to the Jed 303 is what the Desert Plunge and Mod Tub are using with the pump and the Ozone
Jet
pump.
303?
Yeah, Jed 303. That's what Desert Plunge is using. It's the one you talked about with like with the pump and the charcoal tip.
Okay.
So.
I'm not familiar with it. Whatever you're using, you're saying, well, I don't have the price of a car. You can do some other things. You can use hydrogen peroxide. Mm-hmm. Hydrogen peroxide will work with ozone, but you have to use a hell of a lot of hydrogen peroxide to really get the disinfection benefit in your cold tub. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2, so it doesn't contain anything that isn't already contained in water. And when it degrades, it will degrade into water. So that's another option. But when we want to really shock our system, let's say we've got an algae bloom, or let's say somebody went in there and they have like tanning oils on or something. We have big contamination. What we use to shock the system is sulfuric acid. I'll take the pH all the way down to about 3. This boosts the ozone effectiveness by like several times. And then we'll get a massive, in a swimming pool, you would shock it with huge chlorine tabs. We don't do that. We shock with sulfuric acid because that improves the effectiveness of the ozone. The ozone pieces are not that expensive. You don't need, the budget of a used car to add ozone to your Desert Plunge. You can call Matt Kuiper and you say, hey, I want the ozone kit. And, it's an add-on for him.
Got it. What's your opinion on adding hydrogen gas to water?
I'm going to tell you something that we have not yet announced. We are coming out with a hot tub, and it will have a hydrogen option. We're calling it the mineral bath. The idea here is that you can add a lot of salt. And by a lot of salt, we are buying Epsom salt by the pallet. You can crank it up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. It is chlorine free, so it's a warm mineral bath with no chlorine, because hot tubs are notorious for being bacterial, petri dishes of infection soup. We want to use the ozone chemistry in our mineral bath, but we've also got the hydrogen option. The clinical trials that I've read show that if you are under chronic oxidative stress, or you put an animal like a mouse or a rabbit under chronic oxidative stress, the hydrogen therapy will repair the damage of chronic oxidative stress. So there's really something to hydrogen therapy. I haven't seen, although Dr. Paul B. from ECHO, he tells me that the studies are out there. I have not seen the studies that say in a healthy individual, in someone who's metabolically healthy, hydrogen has these benefits. Now, I'm a fat guy, I'm a sedentary college professor, but all of my blood markers say high degree of metabolic health because I have this cold plunge practice. If you get into a hot tub, you are not getting the same brown fat. You're not getting the same mitochondrial stimulation. You are not getting the same metabolic benefit as you get into a cold plunge. So we've got this warm mineral bath coming out. And we wanted it to have a hydrogen option because some of the people in chronic reactive oxygen species stress, chronic oxidative stress, are never going to get into a Morozko to fix it. Instead, they can turn on the hydrogen option. They can change the oxidative reduction potential from ozone dominated to hydrogen dominated. It's going to take about 20 minutes, and they can repair their chronic oxidative stress in our mineral bath with the Epsom salt, with the comfort, with the massage jets, because maybe they don't want to kill their inner bitch and get up to, their neck in huge chunks of ice like Joe Rogan and me are telling them to do. That's going to come out like a week from now. So it's going to come out in the middle of August. If you're watching this podcast after about August 14th, you will be able to go to the MorozkoForge.com website. You will be able to buy the Morozko mineral bath, and you will be able to get the hydrogen option. And this is for medical reasons that I've identified in the literature. Now, a lot of people want us to add hydrogen to the ice bath because Gary Brecka, he went on Joe Rogan and he started talking about doing it. Maybe. Because people want to find out, we might offer that option in the ice bath. But for me right now, I haven't found the scientific or medical reason that says hydrogen. If you're already doing cold, I don't think the hydrogen is going to give you a big benefit. It might be an incremental benefit, and maybe some people want it, so we might fool around with it. But if you are a hot tub person, if you are a float tank person, if you are a mineral bath person, and not an ice bath person, then hydrogen is a good option for you, and we're going to offer it.
That's amazing. It really is it's like water science at the highest level, and just seems like you're just pushing the boundaries. And like you said, there's no one else in the world that would ever think to do this or want to do it. So I'm so grateful that you're out, that you're alive.
I'm an engineering professor at Arizona State, right?
What'd you say?
I don't know another way but to approach it like this.
Yeah, well, it's phenomenal. And on behalf of everyone, thank you. Tom Segar, where can people find you?
I'm on, Twitter, on Instagram, Seagar TP, Seager TP. Everything that I have ever written is available for free on the MorozkoForge.com science tab. So you click science, you can see all my articles, at least the stuff that is written about cold plunge therapy. But if reading online is not for you, go to Amazon, get Uncommon Testosterone. Before you go on TRT, before a menopausal woman goes on hormone replacement therapy, get Uncommon Testosterone and read how to fix your sex hormone levels without the medication. You can get Uncommon Cold. So this is the definitive scientific companion to cold plunge therapy. Right now, you can only get it from MorozkoForge.com. The books are a wealth of scientific knowledge and experience, and that you don't need a used car loan to buy them.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for asking me all these questions, Mike.
This is the Cold Plunge Podcast with me, Mike Gorman. Be sure to check out the video version of this podcast on our YouTube channel, and check the show notes for any references, studies, or links to anything I spoke about on our website at plungereviews.com/podcasts.